What's up, YouTube? How are you guys doing? So today I wanted to give you a little introduction into n8n's native AI agent node. So let's imagine the following initial situation. I'm going to not rebuild the whole flow, but I wanted to show you how this flow works and then get into the very specifics of the AI agent node. So let's imagine the following scenario. We have a table like this. It's a very simple table, and we have a couple of topics that I've written down, and there is a status column, and let's assume that these are topics that I want to create a blog post out of, or let's say a podcast episode out of. And the statuses that are here are just published, drafted, ready, and I want to pull all the entries with the ready status into my flow, and then I have a specific research agent. Now, this research agent's main task is to do some research on the specific topic that I'm going to pass it on here. And I have equipped this specific research agent with a couple of tools that it is able to use to make sure that it is able to handle the tasks that I have given it. Now, there's also a memory node, and we are going to get all of this in a second. And then the output of the research agent will be the input of the podcast generator. And out of this podcast generator will be created a new podcast episode. And this episode, in regards to the tone of voice and everything, will adhere to the brand guide that I have written down here. And it is able to access this brand guide. Now, as you can see, these are two separate agents, and the output of this specific podcast generator will be a transcript, and I'm going to later on use a generate audio node, and this is a text-to-speech node from OpenAI, and this will be able to take the transcript and then format it into an actual audio file, and then I can basically publish this to whatever podcast platform I'm using. So this is the flow that I have built it, which is quite simple, but in regards to the AI agent node, this is something that we want to get into more detail. Let's first of all get into the architecture of the node itself, right? So as you can see, I have an AI agent node, and above this is the basic LLM chain. And if you have worked with AI in some kind of way using n8n, then you might have only used the basic LLM chain node. And these are almost the same in regards to their settings, and we're going to get to this in a second as well. And by the way, you will find this if you open up the node panel on the side, and then you have the AI section, and within the AI section, you have the AI agent node, which is this one, and then you also have the basic LLM chain, which is this one. Now, obviously, first of all, both of these do need a model, which will enable them to interact in some kind of way, obviously. And as you can add any kind of model that you like. So if I want to add a model, then I have access to all the models that are out there. Basically, I'm using ChatGPT's or OpenAI's GPT models most of the time. But this is something where you can see that we also have the similarities, right? So this is a model node, and this is a model node that I can attach to that specific node. Now, the difference, as you can see already from the architecture itself, first of all, is that the AI agent node has two additional connections that I can add subnodes to. The first one is the memory, and the second one is the tools. And we've already seen what we can use using the tools, right? And if we open up the basic LLM chain node, then you can see that we have a source for the prompt field, and we have the prompt itself, and then we have two additional options, and then we have the ability to add more chat messages, and we have the batch processing options. We're not going to get into this in too much detail. And when I open up the AI agent node, then you can see that the settings are almost identical, So we have the source for the prompt, then we have a prompt field, then we have those two options again, and then we can add some additional options. So as you can see, the settings themselves aren't that different, right? However, first of all, the AI agent node is different in that regard that it is first of all able to act autonomously. This is one of the most fundamental things to understand, and the basically trust that we have to have in our, first of all, own prompting abilities, and then also in regards that the AI agent will actually conduct and adhere to the task we have given it. And you can imagine this with something like a handyman or a carpenter or something who you are telling to build a shelf or something, and you are giving it a toolbox, and we are putting everything into that toolbox that we might think might be useful. So let's say we're giving it a hammer, and we're giving it, screws and nails and whatever, but we're telling this craftsman, this handyman, that he is able to use whatever tool he might believe to be appropriate to make sure that at the end of the day the problem gets solved, i.e. the shelf will be built. And this is kind of similar to what we are doing with the agents, because we have to have this, this trust in the agent itself, that it will make the decision and will decide on what tools to use and how to make sure that the problem gets solved, that it is confronted with, by acting on itself. So we are not telling it too much, or we are not giving it too much information, or we are not being too strict in that regard, but we're letting it handle the problems itself. And this is one of the main differences, especially compared to the basic LLM chain, for instance, or in general LLM prompts that we are giving to any LLM. Now, what could this look like? So let's take a look again into our complete flow, and we have our research agent here. And when I open up this, then you can see that first of all, we have a source for the prompt. So there are basically two options. We can use the chat trigger node to be the source for our prompt, or we can define the prompt ourselves below. Now, the chat trigger node is perfect for testing, but you would probably not use it in a production or a live system. That prompt would probably be a little more static in that regard, that you write it beforehand and that you are giving it, that you are giving the agent specific instructions of how it should behave and what its main task is. So when I open up the system message right here, and basically the system message is hidden by default, so you have to add an option, and then you can choose system message, which is the system prompt, and this will be passed on to the LLM beforehand. So as the very first message, so before you have the user message. So chronologically, it will be the system message first, and then after this, we are giving it the user message. So when we open up this prompt, then you can see that this is a rather long prompt, but it is giving the agent specific instructions, what it should do and what it can do, and especially in regards to the tools it is supposed to use. So you can see that we have instructed it at the very top. This is your, that the user is going to pass on a specific topic, and this is what we're doing with the Google Sheet. And then we're telling it, use your own knowledge plus two tools, Google Search and Wikipedia. And so we are telling it what tools it has access to conduct this research. So when I close this and close the second one as well, then you can see that I have added two subnodes, and those two subnodes are Wikipedia and then a Google search. Now, there's not a direct Google search within n8n, a direct Google search tool. So what I'm doing is that I'm using Apify for this, and Apify is a scraping tool, and they also have a Google search results scraper. And this is a paper event actor. I'm not going to get into too much detail, but Apify is a fantastic tool, and per request, you can see this cost me 1 cent, and this enables me to get Google search results. Now, this is what I have attached to this agent, and then also Wikipedia. And the way you can attach any tool is that you just click on this icon, on this plus icon right here, and then you can choose between 3 to 4 different kinds of categories. The most important ones are the MCP. We're not going to get into that, but the other tools, which are basically common apps that we use anyway. And then the second one are the vector stores, and we are going to get into vector stores as well in a second. So if I wanted to add Wikipedia, I would just look for Wikipedia and then choose Wikipedia node, and this is what it is giving me. And here you can see there are no Wikipedia settings whatsoever. You don't even need an API key, but you are giving this specific agent the ability to check Wikipedia for certain kinds of information. The second thing as well, this is just an HTTP request, and you can add this as well. So when I look for HTTP request, then I have a HTTP request tool. And by the way, this is a separate node compared to the root node that you have at the very top, also from a visual standpoint, because these are ones are circles and the other one are squares. And the tools are basically like a subnode of a root node, and but in most of the cases, most of the time they have the same functionality as the root node. Now, I also have the HTTP request tool attached right now. So when I open this, then you can see that this is a basic API call. I'm not going to get into this as well too much because it's about the subnode actually. One important thing about if you want to add a subnode, if you want to assess or if you want to equip your agent with a tool, is that you give that tool first of all a name, because it will be able to read that name. So the agent above it will be able to read the name of the tool and then also read the description. So this is not like an optional description that's just for yourself or just an FYI. This is actually helpful information for the agent to know what this specific subnode is able to do, and this is what we're doing. So when I open this, then you can see conduct a Google search via Apify by passing on the search query. And this is what we're doing at the very top right here. So we have a body that we are sending via the API. And when I open this up, then you can see that it's passing on the search query from the parent node, from the AI agent node. And when I close this again, then all the other settings, we're not going to get into API calls right now, but this is basically the way how this agent is able to pass on its information or its query to the subnode and then conduct a Google search in this specific case. And this is already it in regards to the tools. So you are equipping the agent with the tools that you see useful and from which you might think that they are able or enabling the agent to conduct its tasks. The second one that you can see, the second connection, is the memory. And when I delete the connection right here. And just to show you, there are several kinds of memories that you can ask. One for beginners and then other memories. And the one for beginners is a simple memory. And when I open up this, then you can see that this is also a very simple node. And the only thing that you would want to add is a so-called session ID. When you have a connected chat trigger node, then the session ID itself will be passed on. Otherwise, you can decide on a key that you want to use. But the actual important part is this one. This is the context window length. So what this means is that you are able to pass on how many past interactions the model will receive as context, and I have done this. I'm going to close the simple memory again, and I'm going to delete it as well. And I'm going to reconnect this with the Postgres chat memory that I have added. And by the way, this is coming from the other memories, and I have added the Postgres chat memory, and there are other providers that you can use to your liking. I'm going to close this again. I'm going to reconnect the Postgres. And when I open up this, then you can see that this is connected now to my Supabase account, and we are going to take a look into the table as well. Then I have a session ID, and this is just a Unix formatted timestamp. And then I have a table name, and this is coming from Supabase. And then again, I have the context window length, which allows the agent to receive the past conversations or the past information that it had before. And we are passing on the last 5 conversation or the last 5 information. So when I take a look into Supabase, so this is my Supabase table. Again, we are not going to get into Supabase itself right now. That's not the important part. But what I wanted to show you is this information. So this is the table that you can see n8n chat histories. And this is the table. And these are all the messages that have been sent by me or to me from the agent. And this is our conversation, right? And so the context window length of 5 would mean that we are passing on the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 conversations to that agent. And he's able to retrieve that information and to have access to what we spoke about before. And back into n8n, and now you can see that this is a very powerful addition rather than just having a basic LLM chain or not having a memory. And obviously you can extend this context window length to, I don't know, the last 15 messages or the last 20, whatever you prefer. All right, now you can see that this research agent is already pretty capable of doing the research it is supposed to do. And then obviously, I didn't mention this explicitly, but you obviously have to also connect the agent to a model, right? And if I disconnect this again and connect it again, then this is basically the same selection that we had before. So I'm able to choose the provider that I want to have access to the actual LLM. And when I open up this subnode again, then you can see that this is connected to my OpenAI account. And then I have the possibility to select the appropriate language model. And this is already it. So now you know how the architecture of an agent basically works. Now, another thing that an agent is capable of, and I'm going to continue with the flow, and we're going to jump into the podcast generator. And you can see that this also has a tool, but this tool now looks a little different. And if you remember, when I open up the tool selection, and I'm going to toggle all the sections again, then we also have the vector stores section. And now this is pretty interesting because this enables us, and there again are a couple of providers, and I'm using Pinecone for this one. And you can use obviously the one to your liking. There's also, again, a simple vector store from n8n itself. And this basically enables us to pass on or to equip this podcast generator, in this case, or the specific agent, with additional information that you have as a document. So as in an unstructured data format, like a document, for instance, like this one. So this is a brand guideline that I created just for this demo. Then you have the ability, or then the vector store will enable the agent to access this document and to adhere to, for instance, in this case, to the brand when creating the podcast transcript. And this is coming from the Pinecone database, and I'm within Pinecone right now. And you can see that this database or this index right now is called brand guideline. And here you can see I have 8 records within this. And when I scroll down, then hover over the text, then you can see that there's a text chunk, and this chunk is taken out of this document. So this document was divided into several chunks, and all these chunks are now available within this database or within this index, which is called brand guideline. And now this podcast generator is able to access this vector store, i.e. this document, via this tool as well. We do need a so-called embedding model, and we're not going to get into too much detail as well in regards to this, but this is just to show you how complex and how far you can get with this, and how these agents work and what kinds of possibilities you have. Because imagine you can now have a very highly skilled agent, which is, an expert in research. And obviously this is just the beginning. You can give it 50 different and 50 more tools to, conduct a really thorough research. And then obviously, if we open up this again and we take a look into the prompt again, then obviously the prompt itself is one of the most important parts, right? So that you can be sure that the agent will conduct this research research thoroughly and with a high quality, just as you have with the podcast generator as well. Now, if you want to learn more about this, then first of all, I would highly appreciate if you supported this channel by subscribing and then liking and sharing this video. And then also what I'm doing is I am building a skriptt AI school. And this is exactly the place where you will learn these things, what we just discussed, right? You will learn everything about building AI agents, multi-agents, multi-level AI agent systems with n8n. And if you have not heard about n8n itself, or if you're a complete beginner and you want to expand and extend your knowledge and your skills, then we also have an n8n basic section. And then we will get into RAG, just like we just saw with the vector stores. And then we will get into scraping. I already mentioned Apify. We are using this. And then also everything in regards to, handling databases like Airtable or Supabase as we did today. We will get into prompt engineering just as we saw as well. So if you are interested in this, then today at the time of this recording, this is still free. The school is still free, but it will be a paid version sooner or later. But if you join today, it will be free for you forever. All right, that's already for the introduction into AI agents. I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments. And if you want to have access to all the assets, I am sharing all of this within my school community. And I hope to see you next time. And thanks for the attention. Bye.